Welcome to the Burn Bootcamp podcast. I'm your host, Morgan Klein, co-founder and CEO, along with my husband and company visionary, Devin Klein.
And together, with our amazing team, we are going to help you push past your limits, not just physically in our gyms, but right here, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually on the Burn Bootcamp podcast.
Together, we will take on challenges and break through barriers to transform into the best possible version of ourselves. We are more than a gym. We are a community. Your community.
Let's go, Burn Nation. All right, Burn Nation. Welcome back to the Burn Bootcamp podcast. It is your hosts, Devin Klein and Morgan Klein. We are so happy that you're here today with us. We have 5 amazing stories that we are going to catch you up on in the world of health and fitness, as well as a couple stories here that we'll share, or actually one story from a member. And then we have some questions from our grab bag of member questions. Morgan Klein is here with me. What's up, Morg? How are you doing today?
What's up, guys?
Let's
Happy
get it.
to be here.
I'm excited. This is a really good one. We have a little bit of everything in today's articles. I'm going to go over the headlines real quick, and then we'll jump into it. Sound good? Mm-hmm. Warren Buffett says that one simple everyday habit sets successful people apart from those who maybe are less successful. We're going to talk about that. That's an Inc.com article. I know I'm a big Warren Buffett fan, and I've read this article, and I'm interested to hear what you guys think about this one. Number 2 is taking a break from your smartphone changes your brain. The study finds that intentional break from your smartphone is something that you should consider. We'll talk about that article from the Psychology Post. Number 3, how to increase your protein intake. 7 easy ways to do so. We've been talking about protein a lot here on the podcast. We're going to continue to do it because we believe that education around protein is very important. One of the most important nutritional elements on your journey. Number 4, Morgan and I love Mel Robbins. She has a theory called the let them theory. And this is her secret to stressing less. And so she was interviewed by Jay Shetty, who is, many of you have heard of Jay Shetty. And we're going to listen to a little clip from those two going back and forth on his podcast, I believe, listening to her talk about the let them theory. And then finally, last but not least, there's a study that shows regular exercise, listen to this, Morgan, may benefit women more than men, that if men and women exercise the exact same amount, that there's asymmetrical benefits to women rather than men. So another reason why more women should be working out. Not that men shouldn't. I don't know. I read that article and I'm like, oh, that's nice to know, but not a lot of practical knowledge or tips there. But we'll dive into that. What do you think about this lineup? I thought it was a pretty good lineup of articles. How you doing?
Good. Ready to chat. Yeah, for sure.
Okay. We have a story from Sandy in Frederick, Maryland. Okay. And she's a member. I can't wait for you guys to hear this. It's very inspiring. Roll the video from Sandy.
Hi, I'm Sandy Appleby, and I'm a member of Burn Bootcamp in Frederick, Maryland. I joined Burn in August of 2024, and I walked in and just immediately signed up. I knew that if I trusted the program, that it would work for me, and it has. I have not only lost 40 pounds, but I have seen a drastic improvement in my blood work. My doctor is very happy. It has done wonders for my mental, physical, emotional, even spiritual, I would say, health, and even my family. My husband saw my results and decided to join as well. And so now we have date nights at Burn Bootcamp in Frederick. I can't say enough about the trainers and just the camaraderie of people in class. I know that even when I'm having a bad day, I just need to show up. That's the most important thing for me, is to show up. And everybody in class wants the same thing that I do. We all just want to be the best version of ourselves. I love the trainers here. The trainers are so motivating, and I can't pick a favorite. But I just think that, we have to be the best version of ourselves, and Burn is the place to do that.
All right, you guys. Well, you just heard from Sandy from Frederick, Maryland. Thank you, Sandy, for sharing your story. And it's amazing to see you and your husband in the gym doing date night. And I know that so many of you have your own Burn Boot Camp transformation story. We have a brand new website. We want to hear from you. Okay, so we made a website called burnbootcamp.com/transformation. And you can go here, enter your name, your location, your social media handles, your email, and share your journey with us. Okay, when you hit the landing page, you're going to see some of our marquee transformation stories, our then and now stories at the top of the page there. You'll know you're in the right place. Fill it out, share it with us, and you could be featured on the Burn Boot Camp podcast. All right? Thank you, Sandy, for sharing. Again, very inspirational. Okay, Morgan. So this first article today, Morgan, Warren Buffett, it's a business article. And, people are here at the Burn Boot Camp podcast. Why don't you explain a little bit, why we dive into some of these things that are outside of maybe just push-ups and burpees and nutrition and protein?
Well, I think because we always say that, being healthy is not just physical, it's also emotional, it's also spiritual, it's financial. There's so many different aspects of what healthy looks like, and teaching you guys different ways to be healthy inside and outside of the gym is important to make sure that you're designing the life that you love to live. Because when you love it and you feel like you're in control of your life, you're more confident and you aren't having things happen to you, they're happening for you. So, on the podcast, making sure that we round out these articles, not just on health, but also tips to be successful, whether that's as a mom or as a parent or something in your career. So this Warren Buffett article is one simple everyday habit that sets successful people apart. So what do you think it is, Devin? You have already read the article, but
Yeah,
do you agree with it?
I did. So if you're watching this, you can see this article. If you'd like to go read it in its entirety, the link's in the show notes. I picked out one point to this that I thought I really want to unpack and talk about. There's also a video clip. We're going to jump over to Dr. Hyman podcast to talk a little bit about this, about stress really as well. I mean, habits for success. And the one quote that I really liked from this article that Warren Buffett said was, the difference between successful people and really successful people is that really successful people say no to almost everything. Okay, and I thought that was really interesting. Well, for two reasons. Number one is because it's kind of counterintuitive when, a lot of times don't we also hear that successful people are open to new opportunities and say yes to a lot of things. And, so there's this built-in contradiction. And, me being like a psychology nerd, I was like, there has to be some way to explain this that I don't know about. And so I did some research. More. Do you want to hear what I found out?
Sure.
Okay. And I knew a couple of these terms, but being able to put them together for everybody, I thought was an exciting moment to stop. So we all get this, right? There's this dichotomy of thought. You have, one voice in your head, something you heard, a philosophy that can live in your head that you heard, maybe 10 years ago. And it might tell you something like, let's use this example. To be successful, you have to hustle and grind. Okay, let's say that's like one piece of it. The other piece of it might be like, I believe in work-life balance. Okay, those are two contradictive philosophies, right? Like hustle and grind versus work-life balance. They're going to meet at a head. So there's, what is this? What is this phenomenon psychologically? It's called cognitive dissonance. Okay, and we've heard this before, but it's basically where you have these like two beliefs that occur and they're conflicting in their values. And so therefore you don't really have any movement because you're like in this place where you're really uncomfortable with these two beliefs that are in your head, and you don't move forward at all because they're paralyzing in a way of like, what do I believe? I'm having these contradictory thoughts, and I can't reconcile them in my head. Okay, so that's good that you might be aware of that. That's called cognitive dissonance, okay? So if you're feeling that way, there's a term for that, all right? Now there's two ways that you can maybe go from having these two thoughts that are, at odds with one another to actually putting them in a way that makes sense for you. So dialectical thinking is another way that you could think about two thoughts that are contradictory now starting to work together a little bit more. And this refers to two like beliefs that you have. In this case, we're talking about work-life balance versus I've got to grind to be successful. And ultimately the ultimatum that arises because of that contradiction in a lot of people's lives. Well, dialectical thinking says that these contradictory ideas can be met together, like 1 + 1 can equal 2. So there's like a formula where you meet and you find some middle ground of, yes, work-life balance. Also, the work part of that can mean the grind part. And then you have some room for both. And then I think the last level to it where I would want to push everybody to get to, and where I strive to be at myself personally, is when I do come in this crossroads of thoughts, sticking on the example, I want to have such an amazing work-life balance or harmony because I love and adore my family, but I want to hustle and grind so that I can become successful and reach all of my goals. Well, I can do those things. There is no ultimatum like there might be in a cognitive dissonance situation or even a dialectical thinking situation. If I choose to think paradoxically, or paradoxical thinking, what this means is it's just fancy terms for saying taking a situation and having 3 layers to it, okay? This one to me is the most beneficial for you as a human to think through this lens of 2 thoughts that have seemingly contradictive elements, and having a thought process that says, no, these 2 contradictory things actually, when I put them together, create something where I don't have to have a balance. The sum of these 2 parts is an order of magnitude more beneficial for me than any other way I could think about it, right? So let me go through that really quickly one more time. All these things can be true right here. So the example is, I believe in work-life balance, but I also believe that I need to hustle to succeed. Okay, cognitive dissonance would say, I stand still because I can't reconcile these 2 things. Dialectical thinking says, I let both of these thoughts merge together. I find a middle ground. Paradoxical thinkers basically say that I'm going to embrace this contradiction, and both can be true at the same time. And because I grind, because I hustle, I can have harmony in my life at a greater degree. That's what I thought about. That's my little journey. As I read this article, I was like, man, I get it, Warren Buffett. I get what you're saying. You're saying that the more you say no to things, the more you're going to secure your focus so that you can deploy your focus to other things. But I also hear some people all the time say, like, that I respect, say yes to, like Richard Branson says, say yes to new situations. So
I think there's a difference there, right? So say yes to new situations is new opportunities that maybe you do need to be spending time on and saying yes to. So the article talks about saying no to things to set clear boundaries, like understand what value you bring to that interaction or that meeting. So a lot of this is giving examples in the workplace. And if you're a leader like Warren Buffett, he's led a company, he's built great things. So he's somebody who's always likely had a team, that works with him. And so I think if we were to focus on the examples he gives here, I agree that saying no is healthy and important, but it comes with a lot of different nuances. So, if you are a leader, you might tend to say yes to everything that your team is asking you to do, or every meeting they want to include you on, or every email they want to include you on. And before you just set this clear, like, I'm just going to start saying no to everything, you got to learn how to teach people how to make those decisions without you in the room. And so it takes time and it takes intention. And so, if you're reading the article, I think it can feel a little harsh that you just automatically start saying no, but it is important because you cannot physically or mentally be able to be in all the different, meetings or make all the different decisions. If you are holding a position in a company or you're scaling your company, you've got to learn how to delegate. And that's where the word no starts to come in. And so this is something that I still struggle with. I'm constantly looking and saying, what do I need to just start saying no to, even though it might not be, might not feel good. But in the end, if you're constantly taking an audit of your time and your attention, then the word no is going to have to become part of your vocabulary.
What's your relationship with like time and saying yes and no? So, there's something to be said that if somebody has time, then saying yes is much easier than if somebody doesn't have time when, now
Yeah, I
I don't
agree.
have
I
24
think
hours in my
if
day
someone
to open.
asks me to put a meeting on the calendar and I see that I have availability, then I would just say yes. If I don't have availability, that's when I start to think, okay, well, what are the cliff notes? Like, what do you need, and how can I help contribute to getting to the outcome? And so, I think there is a big associating for me personally, because I don't build in a lot of like free thinking time into my week. I've just not operated that way, good nor bad. I'm kind of like, if my calendar's open, I will take the time. However, I think going back to your work-life balance and grind, it's hard to have a work-life balance if you're 40 hours a week, every hour and minute is accounted for, because you end up having to catch up outside of your work hours or on the weekend, and you never feel like you're in control of your schedule. And I've lived many years that way. And it hasn't been until recently that I'm able to take a little bit more control over my calendar, and I have a great team around me though. That's why it's taken a while to get the right people where I'm like, I don't have to be in every meeting. I don't have to make every decision. I have put in processes and built in the trust to allow other people to do it. So now I only can focus on the things that are most important to me as my role as CEO. And I think too, it takes time and it takes conditioning for you to, maybe you do get invites to a meeting. Ask that inviter or that organizer, hey, how can I add value to this meeting? What do you need from me on this meeting? Because sometimes they might just be roping you in because they think they need to, because you're the manager or the leader. So just get really good at, this article gives some great tips on like questions to ask or phrases to ask yourself. But I think the word no and saying no can also apply in your personal life. Whether that is being asked to do social events that like you ultimately don't really want to. It's, if that drains you, like, say no. Like, it usually comes from a people pleasing tendency that you say yes to all the different things that you may be invited to. But it's okay to say no from a personal standpoint if it's not fulfilling you, and if it's not your top 5 priorities, and you'd rather use that hour or 2 or 3 back into your schedule to do things that do fill you up in different ways, then say no.
Yeah, and the key is your top 5 priorities, because saying no because you don't feel like it could also slip into a place in which you don't feel like doing anything ever, and then you justify being a hermit and not being out and being social, or because you need that too. Like, and I've seen that it could also go too far. Anything can go too far one way. I understand what you're saying for sure, and not to push back too hard, because I don't disagree with you, but just saying that some people you could, if you're looking for an opportunity to like get permission to not do anything ever and be lazy, you could take that and like run with it and said, oh, well, Morgan, or Devin said that, we should be more selective. Yeah, you should be more selective. But what Morgan said was, what are your priorities? Does it align to your top 5 priorities? And the things that are in your priorities, even if there's things that you do not want to do, that because you shouldn't only require yourself to do things that you absolutely 100% feel like doing all the time. I think a better way to look at it is if it's in your top 5 priorities and like 80% of you feels like doing it, because there's there could be an opportunity to say, I don't, my priorities are nothing, just to chill, and I just don't want to be in a position ever where we are allowing like the approval of ourselves to like isolate ourselves from society. I want to do that. Community is so important. It's so important.
All right, so I know before we round out this topic, we do have a video. If we want to go ahead and roll that with Dr. Hyman.
Hyman and Pedram Shoje talking about the art of saying no when it comes to your health.
You talk about saying no as a really important way of actually helping yourself. Often, when your heart says no and your mouth says yes, there's a huge cost to that for you personally. And I think many of us struggle with that. And so we have to learn how to be in integrity, to be able to say no with love and kindness, but to really take care of ourselves. And I think that's, like I said, someone said saying no to someone else is saying yes to yourself. So how do you recommend people do that? Because I know it's a challenge for me. People are now even having more difficulties working from home and trying to balance school and work and many more things. So how do you get people to the polite and loving no?
Yeah. And I find that it's easier for East Coasters than West Coasters. I mean, we all come from a people-pleasing culture in America in general, but no is a very difficult word. We want people to like us. We want to help our friends. We want all those things. And I would say that, for me, the filter I put all of those questions through becomes my life garden. And so once I visualize my life garden, how much water it takes to manifest all the things that I do, and you do a lot, I do a lot. I mean, we're busy people. So it's like I'm constantly watering a number of films and books, and all these things take a lot of time, energy, and effort. And so when some new opportunity comes up, I look at all the things I've already said yes to real quick, including my wife, my kids, my fitness, even my dogs. I mean, I have so many things that take time during my day. And then I have to ask myself, what do I have to say no to make this a yes? And if this thing is so important to supplant one of my former yeses and stop watering it to allow for this to happen.
It is a conscious decision. It's a trade-off as they were talking about. It's a trade-off. You're not going to ever be in a situation where, something is absolutely better than something else. It's, what are my priorities? I think that's an important point. And then how do I make those decisions? Well, how do I say yes and how do I say no to things? Well, are my priorities actually my priorities? Well, how do you tell? Well, are they aligned to my values as a human? Is this really what I want? Is this what somebody else wants me to have?
Mm-hmm. It's a good way to audit.
Before we go to the next article, there's a great little bridge, a transition here, because saying yes or saying no to smartphones is a really hot topic right now. It's a hot topic. It's been a hot topic for the last decade. There's been studies on podcasts about smartphones and the changes to your brain. And so we have an article that comes from the Psychology Post, and they talk about taking a brain from your smartphone changes your actual brain. Okay, so everything changes your brain. When you change the direction and focus of your eyes, your brain changes. So what does this really mean? What does it really mean when it says changes your brain? Let's go ahead and read. Let's see. It's the fourth paragraph down, Jordan. To better understand the potential impacts, researchers decided to investigate what happens in the brain when people take a break from their smartphones. They were particularly interested in how restricting smartphone use affects brain responses related to cues or triggers associated with smartphone use, and whether these brain changes are linked to feelings of craving. Learning more about these neutral mechanisms can help us understand if excessive smartphone use shares similarities with other behaviors that involve rewarding and craving, such as gaming or substance abuse. Previous studies have showed that individuals who use smartphones excessively exhibit some differences in brain structure and function compared to those who use them less. The new study aimed to explore whether these brain differences are fixed or if they can change with a period of smartphone restrictions. Quote, smartphones have become an integral part of modern life, but concerns are growing about their impact on mental health and brain function, said study study author Robert Christian Wolf, the deputy director of the Department of General Psychology at Heidelberg University Hospital. Keep going a little bit more. Where's the juice in this article?
Keep going down to surprisingly.
Where's the juice? Where's the juice? We got to find it. Surprisingly. All right, go ahead, Morgan. Where do you see surprisingly?
Keep going.
Keep going, Jordan. Keep going. Right there. Okay, go ahead. Take it over.
Surprisingly, an analysis of the questionnaire data did not show any significant changes in mood or craving levels after the 72-hour smartphone restriction period. However, the brain scans told a different story. When looking at brain responses to smartphone images in general, both turned on and turned off, compared to neutral images, the researchers found increased activity in the anterior cingulate cortex and the nucleus accumbens after a 72-hour restriction. Not sure I know what those parts of the brain are or do, but sounds like they felt it. The brain, it says these brain regions that are known for important processing rewards and are often implicated in craving and impulsive behaviors. This increase in activity suggests that even though participants didn't report feeling like they craved their smartphone, their brains were showing a heightened response to smartphone cues after the break. So we're basically wiring our brain. This is what I get out of it. We're wiring our brain to have an addiction to checking our phone. And they can sense that when you take a 72-hour break and then you introduce a phone image, your brain signals are heightened. So it's just one more thing in today's society that we're becoming addicted to.
Yeah, and my question would be, how do you, I have a healthy obsession with some things. Is there a way, and I believe there's a way to use our phones with studies like this that aren't trying to demonize smartphones. It's not trying to do that. I think it's really putting smartphones in the light of hey, these things are very, very powerful extension, human tools, extension of the human being. And it seems like we are symbiotic with the technology anyways. And so what this is really trying to uncover is what's the healthy use of it. It's not saying that you shouldn't use it. It's what's the healthy use of it, and saying, hey, if 72 hours you can report a disconnection, right? You can report, nah, I don't really need it. That's what the anecdote was from some of the people in the study. I don't really need it after 72 hours. And, and I would wonder if everybody's that way, because it seems people are quite a bit more addicted to their phone than that. But maybe that's just in the short term. In 72 hours, it's kind of like a vacation when you go away for a week and you're gone. It might take you 3 days to assimilate to the nature that you're in, and allow yourself to chill out a little bit and just relax. But I kind of like this study because it is a very pro technology. I'm a pro technology. I don't want to ever demonize things. If you go back and I like to look at history whenever there's a societal trend to demonize something, you just go look at the history of it, and there's always a societal trend of demonizing the thing that's like that. And smartphones, if you go back to radio and TV, and even go further back than that, at one point toys, for kids, when you went from dolls to kaleidoscopes, and kids were just looking in this kaleidoscope all day long. And people were saying the same thing at those times. Hey, your kids are wasting their brain power. They're fantasizing all day long about this thing it's not reality. And then radio comes, and same thing, and then TV comes, and the same thing, and then the internet comes, and smartphones. And so I think mediums of information distribution aren't going anywhere, but it's just, how do you use these different tools in a way that is aligned to not taking away pleasure from life, but adding to it? So 72 hours to set your phone down every now and then, it's not a big deal. I think we should probably do so. I think that's probably the balance, is we should have a break from technology for 72 hours. So next time you go on vacation, maybe just do that. Set your phone away, 72 hours.
I think that's the hardest part, though, is the all or nothing strategy. I think what I would love to do is play this video, too, of maybe a more alarming sign is when you have other activities that are going on in your life. How many times are you losing kind of the dopamine of that because you are so focused on your phone? And it's to me, it's when you're in a room of, crowded people and you still need to have your phone and you need to be looking at it. That to me is more of that concerning sign that you're not able to be in your surroundings or aware of what's going on around because you're so focused on that. So the all or nothing, I could not go 72 hours without my phone, because I just, if I'm not with my kids, I need to be able to get a hold of my kids, or my mom. I don't know. It would be really hard for me to do that. And that's, I think, an extreme strategy. So I think there's a happy medium. So let's go ahead and roll the video. Dr. Huberman talks about the impact of your phone during activities that can affect dopamine levels in the brain. Here we go.
As a personal example for this, I happen to really enjoy working out. I've always really enjoyed it. But in recent years, I noticed that if I was bringing my phone to my workouts, then not only was I a little bit more distracted and not focusing on what I was doing as much as I could have or should have, but also I started to lose interest in what I was doing. It wasn't as pleasurable. I would feel like it just didn't have the same kind of oomph, and I was beginning to question my motivation. As I started learning more about this relationship between the peaks and the baselines and dopamine, what I realized was that some time ago, I probably experienced a incredible increase in the amount of dopamine during one of my workouts because I enjoy working out and I enjoy listening to music. I also enjoy listening to podcasts. I also enjoy communicating with people. Those are all wonderful pursuits, but I had layered in too many of them too many times, and then it essentially wasn't working for me anymore. Much in the same way a drug wouldn't work for somebody who takes it repeatedly because their baseline of dopamine is dropping. So at least for this calendar year, I've made a rule for myself, which is I don't allow my phone into my workouts at all. No music, at least not from the phone. It can be in the room. I might listen to a podcast in the room, but I don't listen to anything or engage in anything on my phone. No texting whatsoever. And most of the time, I just don't even bring it with me for that.
I like that. That's what I love about Burn is that I don't have to have like earbuds in. I can listen to the music, but I am a bad offender of this. So I need to get better at it. I always check my phone because it's like during the noon hour and I'm usually getting Teams or emails. I need to like recommit to not looking at my phone because I can see how it does impact your focus.
Yes.
But our workouts are designed so you don't have to have technology next to you.
Yes. Yeah, our workouts are definitely designed with that intention. Do you think everybody knows that? Should we talk about that real quick? Let's talk about that real quick. So if you've never been to a Burn boot camp before, let me paint a picture of what it looks like when you walk in. You walk into the floating floor. There's no mirrors. There's no smartphones. There's no screens on the wall. This is all about human connection. And this is the time where we do get to take our technology, our cell phones, we get to set them over in what we call the cubbies, and you just get to let that thing ring for 45 minutes if it needs to ring, and protect the four walls of your mind and allow yourself to be in an environment where it's just about human connection. It's just about you being able to focus on the physical activity. There's no mirrors on the wall distracting you by looking at yourself or looking at other people, or having your cell phone in your back pocket where somebody texts you can pull out and you can text real quick. There's no screens on the wall that are going to replace our trainers, so you're looking at the screens rather than the connection between you and the trainers. And so we want to focus on intentionality when we're in the gym. We want to focus on human connection, and we most of all want to focus on training. Means a plan, a regimented exercise with the goal, and with you and your trainer looking forward toward a goal, towards something that you are really excited about. And if there's mirrors, and if there's screens, and if there's cell phones in the building, then it takes you away from that connection with yourself and with your trainer and with others around you. Was that a good explanation? I think that's a good explanation of it all. All right, everybody. We're going to go to the next article, Morgan. This one's about how to increase protein intake, 7 easy ways. All right. And if you've been listening to the podcast for any amount of time, Morgan knows what I'm going to say. 100 grams of protein or more. Every human being on the planet, we got to know this. We got to know how many grams of protein we're getting in. We got to actually another Huberman and Lane Norton clip that we're going to show you guys here in a moment. But you guys know we love our lists, and there's a list that comes from let's see, the CNET. Comes from CNET. How to increase protein intake in 7 easy ways. Getting enough protein is key to overall wellness and fitness, as you all know. So here's 7 daily habits. These weren't mind-blowing to me, Morgan. Do you want to go over them real fast? We talk about them a lot on the podcast, but just another positive reminder and affirmation that protein is very, very important.
All right. So number 1 is make a protein ritual. Consistency is key. I agree with that. So whether that is, planning your meals and making sure that you have like protein X amount of time before you wake up or after your workouts and whatever that looks like, make sure that you have a routine around getting protein in. Number 2 is eat your protein first. So when you have your meals, and let's say you've got a protein, a carb, and a fat, then it says try eating the bulk of protein before moving on to the other food sources on your plate, especially grains, because grains can fill you up faster. So if you fill up faster on things that are non-protein, then you may be less likely to finish all the protein on your plate. Number 3, top foods with chopped nuts. I've never actually done this one. So nuts are not necessarily
Probably with like some parfaits before, maybe, or something like that.
granola, but
There you
not.
go.
Yeah. Top foods. Okay, so nuts are not necessarily the best source of protein, but adding them to your meals throughout the day can give you a nice protein boost. So chopped walnuts, chopped peanuts. You know what? Now that I think about it, I have put peanut butter on things. But anyways, you could put this on oatmeal, on like an acai bowl, things like that, to just add more protein and crunch. Number 4, choose.
You just blew like 3,700 people's minds. They thought it was called a kai the whole time.
Acai?
It's acai bowl.
Did you think it was a kai?
No, but there was one
I've never
point, there-
heard anyone say that.
Oh, no, for 100%. At one
Okay.
point in time, I thought it was an acai bowl.
Okay.
And
All right.
this
So we're
was-
just talking about you in
no,
that scenario.
no, I'm a representation of other people.
Okay.
You definitely just taught somebody something.
All right. Number 4, choose leaner meats. So the options here: top sirloin steak, top round roast or steak, bottom round roast or steak. I have round roast and steak, and then sirloin.
Red meat.
Yeah, this is a lot of meat choices.
Yeah,
So another lean meat that we like is bison at the Klein House. Number 5, choose brown rice or quinoa over white rice. Can't say I completely agree with
well,
that
you
one.
can, but it's like
But that's okay. Here we are. So number 6, add beans to anything. So if you do like beans, then that is another great source. You can add it to salads, pastas, tacos. And depending on the type of bean, you can add up to 10 grams per half cup.
high in fat, though. So be careful if you're trying to keep your calories down.
And then number 7 is swap white bread for whole grain. I do agree with this one. Bread is an unassuming place for your protein intake, but some breads actually pack quite the protein punch. Just like brown rice has more protein than white rice, whole grain bread has more protein than white bread.
Okay.
Number 8.
I thought there was only 7.
You're right, there was, but we've got an extra one on the
there's
article.
a 7. Oh, okay.
High protein snacks like cheese, bone broth, ready-to-made protein drinks, Greek yogurt, cottage cheese, burn boot camp afterburn protein bars, and that's it.
Okay, so let's rate this list on a scale of 1 to 10 at the same time. Ready? 3, 2, 1, 4.
7. You're a tough judge.
Well, because come on, tell me something new here, people. It's just what do you do? We're just regurgitating the same stuff. I want to learn something new. But we didn't. So we're gonna bring it back to some basics real quick. Okay, so protein, carbohydrates, fats, macronutrients make up calories. Calories, units of energy. Okay, not all protein is made equal, and so we need to bring this back to a conversation of not only some ways to get some protein, and that was a decent review. It was a 4 or 5 out of 10 for me. 6 or 7 out of 10 for you. That's either way. There wasn't anything mind-blowing there. What are the fundamentals of understanding protein, right? Education is a prerequisite, like knowledge is a prerequisite to execution. So here's what you should know about protein. Number 1, that there are really 4 ways to categorize protein, and it starts, number 1, with quality. Okay, quality. Number 2 is quantity. Number 3 is timing. Number 4 is type. All right, it does you no good to get, let's just say, a bunch of bad protein in your body. So quality protein, the effectiveness of the protein source is number 1, meaning like the complete or non-complete. The amino acid profile, the bioavailability, the digestibility, the quantity then is second to your, this is your total daily intake of protein. Like we said, start at 100 grams, but most individuals that have healthy biometrics otherwise can be anywhere from 0.8 to 1.2 up to 1.5 grams per pound of body weight, which is really important. And then timing matters next, when and how frequent you consume your protein, and then the type, the source, the variety, is it animal, plant-based, processed, natural, whole food, supplement. So there's just some considerations when you're looking for protein, and number 1 and 2 are quality and quantity. And so 100 grams is the most important, and then you want to get up toward, as you're becoming a better and better athlete, a more skilled and trained athlete, more muscle mass, you're going to want to move up into the 1.2 to 1.5 grams per body pound range. And so this can become something that is just eyeballed at a certain point in time. If you're first starting out, what you're going to do is probably download MyFitnessPal or the Lose It app, and you're going to really enter in you can just scan your foods nowadays. You can scan the barcode. You can type it in. It's very, very intuitive. And you're going to be able to first identify like what is going into your body and get a baseline for yourself. How much protein am I really putting in my body? How much protein am I really putting in my body? That's the number one thing. You want to have some awareness around that. If it's 80 grams, you got to be like, I got to figure out how to get to 100 normalized first. And then from there, we'll start working up and up and up and up. But at some point, this should just become an eyeball thing, right? You've heard of the hand test over the top of your plate. If you put your hand over the top of your plate, about 6 inches over the top of your plate, about 6 ounces of protein is about the size of your hand, just roughly speaking. And so we want to be able to know that if the size of my hand then is somewhere between, depending on the protein, 40 and 50 grams of protein, that's like 6 to 8 ounces of meat, fish, chicken, whatever, eggs, then I can start to just eyeball my protein. And I want to get you to a point where easily you can come within 10 grams a day because you are educated on the quality and based on the quality, how many grams of protein an egg white has in it. For example, Morg, do you know how many grams of protein an egg white has in it, for example? Here's a hint.
8.
8. Yeah, good job. There's 8. So if we know that, and we know 6 ounces of chicken breast has 42 grams, you can educate yourself to the point where getting 200 grams of protein, if you're a person that can digest that amount, then you know. And I'm about at 200 myself, rough rate, 180 to 200. So, I'm about 1 gram per body pound per day right now, and that seems to do pretty well with me. I consistently gain muscle mass. Morgan, what about you? Do you know? Is it an eyeball thing for you at this point? How do you go about it?
I haven't tracked in quite some time.
But you did track for quite some time, like
I would say
ago, right?
When I'm very intentional, I'm getting over 100 grams for sure.
Well, it doesn't change. That's the beautiful part about this is that once you are able to identify and educate yourself around the different various protein sources. I mean, how many protein sources do we talk about, guys? How many are there? Really? I mean, you could think of like 20 max that are good, probably routine, normalized things. And the average person probably consumes 4 to 5 protein types. Mm-hmm. So you're really just talking about understanding 5 to 10 foods and how many grams of protein that they have in them based on the quantity of food that you have in front of you. So it's not rocket science and it doesn't take so long, but what I will say is it does take a concerted and intentional effort. So my call to action for you, if you're here and you have no idea how much protein that you're getting in your body on a daily basis, my call to action for you is download the MyFitnessPal app or the Lose It app right now and begin to honestly log everything that you're eating only for 7 days. I don't think logging is a lifestyle. I think logging is an activity that you do for 7 days. And then you say to yourself, how am I doing? And the answer to that question is, am I above or below 100 grams? Let's just start there. And if you're above 100 grams, then, okay, now we're going to start talking about, okay, what does that 100 grams consist of? All right? And then if you're not quite there, it's like, how do we get there? All right? Is that fair enough for everybody? Mm-hmm. Okay. And if you're past that stage and you're like, DK, I'm way beyond that, take me to the next level. Okay, 1.5 to 1.8 grams per body pound of protein on a daily basis is where you're at, depending on what your goals are, whether you're trying to gain muscle mass, keep your body fat down, or you're trying to just gain as much muscle mass as possible and not concerned with body fat, depends on how many calories and how much protein that you intake. You might have heard these called bulking and cutting cycles. And you can start to do these things once you are advanced and you've assimilated to the normal baseline of nutrition. Okay, that's enough on that one. Speaking of nutrition, though, before we do move on from nutrition, Protein comes in many forms. The number one most bioavailable, digestible protein type on the planet, okay, is whey protein. Okay, this isn't my opinion. This is from digestibility scores, okay? And so what we wanted to do here at Burn Bootcamp was provide Afterburn, which is a whey protein product. We have plant as well for those who enjoy plant for any reason. We have both options for you. Chocolate and vanilla are the best sellers. Right here, you're looking at the whey protein. You can get these at shop.burnbootcamp.com. Everyone, you can get these in gym. And if you do shop online, remember that your purchase goes toward the credit of your local gym. And we really appreciate you guys getting that Afterburn protein in, okay? Because I know you're in the gym. Now you got to take advantage of all that hard work in the gym. Okay, we're going to move on to the let them theory. This let them theory comes from Mel Robbins. Morgan, you like yourself some Mel Robbins. She wrote a book called, I do too. I like myself some Mel Robbins. She wrote a book called The High Five Strategy or something like that, which is, Burn has been focused on the power of transferring energy through high fives for a long time. So she speaks our language. This one comes from wondermind.com. And we're going to actually really, she did get covered in this article. I think more importantly, there's a clip that we want to watch here from the Shetty podcast. But Morgan, just real quickly, without diving into this article here, what is this theory? What do you think about it overall? And what are your thoughts?
So I have not read the book, but I've seen a ton of kind of clips on this on social media. So I think I understand the theory, and it's really just, I think it helps people that come from a deep people-pleasing trait of, caring a lot about what people think and making, and that dictating kind of how you live your life. So I love the message of kind of let them think that. I think it's an overall arching philosophy that I have gained over the last several years, is just, you will never make the masses happy. You will never make everybody in your life happy. So do you, and, let yourself make the decisions as long as in your heart they're the right ones, and let them think what they want.
There's a clip that we have from Mel on the Jay Shetty podcast. Let's roll that, and then we'll react to it.
Been seen as the number one cause of stress. You write about this in the book, in people's lives. How can the let them theory help people in the place that causes them the most stress?
It's an excellent question. So first, let me, no pun intended, let me explain the theory. So in case you haven't bumped into this online, the theory is very simple. It is a mindset tool that instantly helps you identify what's in your control and what's not in your control. The reason why this is important is because any psychologist will tell you that if you focus and try to manage things that are never going to be within your control, it only creates stress, anxiety, and frustration for you. When you take the context of work, there is so much inside your day-to-day life at work that is irritating, it is stressful, it is annoying, from the endless meetings and no time to get work done, to if you're somebody that is working in a retail store, you're doing shift work, you don't have control over what shifts you get, to feeling like you don't have the chance for promotion. It is just endless. And the way that you're going to use the let them theory is anytime something is happening at work that stresses you out, you have a customer that's really rude, you lose a big account, you get passed over for something, your idea gets dismissed in a work meeting. As you notice the stress come up, Jay, you're simply going to say, let them. Let my boss be in a bad mood. Let my colleague take credit. Let the customer be rude to me. And here's the thing. This sounds almost like you're being a doormat and you're being passive. It's the exact opposite. When you say let them, you're recognizing that the situation right now that has just happened has already happened, and that there is no reason to allow it to stress you out.
Let them theory. So Mel says in this clip, when you allow them to make you feel this way, I think that's what stood out the most to me. So she says, when you allow, keyword being allow, them to make you feel this way. I think what we all should realize that will help us tremendously in our lives is that other people trying to do things to you or make you feel a certain way is actually in your control, and no one can make you feel any way. You can only choose to react to what that person said and make yourself feel a certain way. And I think that's really what she's focusing on here is, she's saying like, let it go. It's I think it's not a novel idea. This goes way back. I mean, we talked about this a few episodes ago from a man named Marcus Aurelius in the book Meditations, who talks about, hey, just expect people to wake up every day. Just expect to wake up every day and expect people to be rude. Expect people, it's the kind of saying the same thing is let it go. Buddhism and Taoism are all kind of foundationally ingrained into not allowing other people to make you see the world a certain way. Viktor Frankl, who wrote a book called As a Man Thinketh. He was a gentleman who wrote a book. He was a Holocaust prisoner, and he wrote a book reflecting on his experience. And one of the quotes from his book was, I think, like, let others exist as they are without trying to control them, something along those lines. And so this idea that comes from a man who was like inside of one of the world's most heinous, civil crimes ever, the Holocaust, who wrote How a Man Thinketh. If you haven't read that book, by the way, read that book. It is an incredibly powerful book. Let others exist as they are without trying to control them is basically saying the same thing as let them. Or DG and I talk all the time about, hey, he says, let it go. Like, let them, let it go, let others exist as they are. To me, these are all the same things. It's the same notion that no one has the power to make you feel a way. You only have the power to make yourself feel a certain way based on your interpretation of their behaviors and their kind of experience. So, yeah, Morgan, what's your take on what Mel is saying here, or anything that I said?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is a great book for people that are feeling like sick and tired of being anxious or stressed, or they're exhausted with kind of never getting different results out of their life. But the overall message for me is that it allows you to just shift your thinking of focusing on what's truly in your control, and how others react to you or behave around you essentially is out of your control. So it's about shifting your mindset to say, okay, well, either I remove myself from these people, or I learn to embrace what they're going through, and it's not going to change how I make my decisions and how I act and behave. So I think that's a great message, and I'm sure the book goes much, much deeper into, how to really change that mindset that we all inherently have, I think.
Yeah, it definitely does. And I have not read this book either by Mel Robbins. It's not that I wouldn't recommend it. It's probably a great book. I would definitely recommend How a Man Thinketh. Just to reiterate that, if you are somebody who is in the situation that Morgan just described, we all kind of have, we have all been there at some point, and or we'll go back to that at some point. So that has been a very important book in my life, How a Man Thinketh. Okay, so we're moving on to a member question from Mandy. She's in Columbia. Maryland, and she says, Morgan, Devin, so intermittent fasting. She's interested in hearing some more on intermittent fasting. I try to do a clean fast, but also want to use Replenish in my water and afterburn with my collagen, following camps. So this is a question around when I'm fasting, can I use Replenish? Can I use collagen? What are your thoughts on this? From everything I read, this would break the fast. Okay, so I'll lead on this one because Morgan has tried fasting before, I believe. Have you not? But you're not like.
I've done it for different reasons, though. I've done it for my GI issues, not for like weight loss. So a lot of like the term intermittent fasting is associated with weight loss, and I've done it more to give my digestive system a longer break.
Okay. So. Okay. Yeah, and so that's a great point, because a lot of times people will use intermittent fasting keyword intermittent means shorter, right?
Mm-hmm.
Periodic intermittent. Okay, so what you're saying is you did it so that you could get beyond the threshold of calorie restriction, in beyond lipolysis, fat burning, and into autophagy, which is the next step, which is allowing your body to start to get to the point where it's cleaning itself, it's ridding itself of. So you were getting the point to where you fasted so you could get to some type of homeostasis or some type of baseline with your biometrics so that you could be tested for something. Am I correct?
No.
Okay,
Mm-mm.
then tell me why I'm wrong.
Well, I have done that, but the times I have fasted, which is not that many times, I've done a 24-hour fast where I only did like bone broth or water. And that was so I could literally give my digestive system a 24-hour break from digesting anything. And so this is like trial and error for me to try to relieve some of the pain I was having in my stomach. So I don't think I'm equipped to necessarily talk from a personal experience on this because this isn't something I do consistently. I do it like once a month, if that, on the 24-hour fast. So I think what she's talking about is the larger window of like you go 16 hours without eating anything, and people will do that so they have a shorter window to actually consume calories, so that can help you with your caloric intake if you're trying to be in a deficit, or it can help with more of like the fat burning stuff that you talked about.
Okay, got it.
So if I were to answer this question, Mandy, I would try to actually go a little bit deeper to try to understand what exactly are you trying to gain out of intermittent fasting? What are the benefits you're trying to get out of it? If it is, giving your body that full window of, let's say, 16 hours to not consume calories, then yes, I would agree that afterburning collagen is breaking your fast. But if you're just doing it to maybe help restrict calories and like give yourself a smaller window to actually eat food, then I don't personally think having replenish or afterburn is a bad thing because you are fueling your body. And then maybe you don't start eating like actual food until a certain time. But again, that is not like a scientific answer. That is just Morgan Klein answering the member question. Because I'm not a huge fan of it. So
yeah,
it works for some, but not for all.
Yeah, I mean the actual physiological effects will work for all. It just depends on where you're at in your life, and are you ready from an experience standpoint to be able to approach this in a way in which the underlying habits are already there. So you should never try any type of fasting if you aren't already 6 days out of 7 at the very least having a very clean foundational diet that consists of mostly whole foods, that you're hydrating yourself appropriately, at least half your body weight in ounces of water a day. I mean, you're doing all the baseline stuff. I mean, fasting can be dangerous. Intermittent fasting isn't too dangerous. Fasting can be dangerous. And just like any other tool, this is the same conversation I would have about a supplement or a GLP-1 or anything. It'd be have the foundation of eating well most of the time, which my definition is 6 out of 7 days, and 85% well on those days. Like, eat well most of the time, whole food that comes from the earth, right? That isn't processed food, that isn't fast food. Do that. Train hard, 4 to 6 times a week. Have good recovery habits. Okay, and then we can start to try things, because the reality is if you're intermittent fasting and you're doing it for less than 16 hours, really all you're doing is just controlling calories. Until about, maybe 12, some could argue, but really 16 hours is when lipolysis starts to happen, and that's when your body starts basically depleting its glycogen stores and starts burning your fat as energy, okay? So that's what happens. And that's like the typical intermittent fasting window. That's only where it goes, is to lipolysis. All right. Now, what people talk about when they fast or cellular cleanup or that longer window, that more like 18 to 24-hour window. So I'm talking 2 days of fasting here, right, which is very advanced. And this is, by the way, something I recommend to almost absolutely no one, unless you are one of the 1 or 2% of people that have the underlying healthy foundations and habits in which then you can let this kind of what's called the autophagy phase begin. So you can go in and say, all right, I'm going to fast for 24 hours. And what I mean by autophagy is that it's your, how do you say? It's like your body's natural recycling process. It'll recycle bad cells, old damaged proteins. They'll be broken down. They'll be used for energy. Okay. And also what happens during this time is HGH gets released in a higher way, which leads to muscle preservation mostly. So you're not losing muscle mass by, theoretically here, right? You're not losing muscle mass because if you're getting to the autophagy phase in a fast, then you're releasing HGH that's muscle preserving and fat burning. Okay, then you're going to go deeper into a fast, okay? You're going to go for 24 to 48 hours, so like a day to 2 days, not just a day like an autophagy. And then you're going to go to like a ketosis or deep cellular repair. This stuff to 72 hours is like immune system regeneration. This is about as far as I would ever consider personally is 3 days. I've never done 3 days. I've only fasted for 24 hours, and I've only done that a couple times. Maybe I'll do a 3-day one just to experiment. But listen, most people, like, if you're talking about a 3-day fast, you should be like a registered dietitian who knows so much about their own body and how their own body interacts with all the food sources, and you should be so well versed in how your body interacts with food that this is an experimental thing for you, that this isn't like a Hail Mary last ditch effort to lose weight before bikini season. Okay, you guys follow me on this? So when we're talking about fasting, it's very dangerous, especially as you start to extend the time out. And and some people will even get like crazy and go right into like a 3-day dry fast, which is 3 days without eating or drinking. And it's like not recommended at all. You should not do that at all. Almost no one should do that ever, unless you're one of the crazy people that is experimenting. So let's just review that real fast, because that's a lot. Okay, so it's basically after 18 hours, anything up to 18 hours is your little liposis, extra fat burning, calorie restriction for sure, nothing crazy. Intermittent fasting should only be done in that way if you've already had the underlying eating, training, recovering habits, okay? After 18 hours, then you start to get to cellular repair. This is where the magic starts to happen. This is why you would fast if you're going to fast, in my opinion, to get to this place where you have cellular recycling. After that, 18 to 24 hour phase, you get to 24 to 48 hours, ketosis starts to dominate, fasting benefits toward metabolic and brain health, and then 48 to 72 hours, immune system rejuvenation. Anything longer than that gets a little crazy. We shouldn't be doing it. That's my take on it. And that's, to me, Mandy, the answer to your question, which is, by the way, just be concise, your question specifically was, I tried to do a clean fast but wanted to use replenishing my water and afterburn with my collagen following camps. Wondering your thoughts on this. My thoughts would be, if you're merely into intermittent fasting for liposis, having a little collagen, having a little water, is it going to hurt you? Because the main game in that window, in that time frame, is calorie restriction. Replenish has no calories. Collagen has 40 calories a serving. So you're going to be pretty good there, in my opinion. If that mentally breaks your fast, then that's another thing. Maybe not do it. And I would say that if you could refrain, if you wanted to refrain, it doesn't matter to me when you get your collagen in, as long as you do so in a 24-hour window. As you can tell, with the hierarchy of protein intake being quality, quantity, timing, and type. Timing is low down the totem pole in terms of when we get it. As long as you're getting it in a 24-hour period, that'll be good enough for 99.9% of our use cases. Anything to add to that, Morgan Klein? I know I went deep into a lot of intermittent fasting stuff here and gave people some just kind of general phases of it and what to think about. Anything come to mind there for you?
No.
Okay.
You rounded out well.
All right, everybody. We're going to move on to the last article of the day. Study shows that regular exercise may benefit women more than men. There's not a lot here, Morg. There's not a lot here. Yeah. All right. This comes from NIH, National Institutes of Health. All right. which is
We do have a video. I think maybe let's roll that.
let's roll the
'cause it kinda
video. Yeah,
rounds
let's
it
roll
out.
the video. This before we do that, that article right there, all that's basically saying, everybody, is that they did a study where women and men did the same amount of exercise, and women are going to live longer if they do the same amount of exercise, which isn't fair, but that's the way it is. Dr. Wendy Suzuki on the Diary of a CEO podcast, and she, who wrote one of my favorite books, Happy Brain, Happy Life, is discussing what the best types of exercise are for your brain and the neurological effects based on the different types of exercise. Roll clip.
Kind of exercise should I be doing to make my ball of tofu in my head great,
Yeah.
optimal?
Well, all the research shows that the best kind of exercise that you can do is anything that gives you aerobic activity, that is getting your heart rate up. So that goes for, power walking will get your heart rate up, soccer, so many different things. Name your activity. So many people want to say, oh, well, my favorite activity, will that work? And I always just say, is your heart rate up when you're doing it? If the answer is yes, then yeah, that works great. We know that level of aerobic activity is critical because that's going to release that growth factor maximally to get into your hippocampus that will grow those new brain cells.
How much?
So I have an answer to that. So we did 2 different experiments in my lab. One in low-fit people that are really not exercising very much at all, less than 30 minutes in the last three weeks you've moved your body. And we asked, could we see any behavioral improvement in your memory function from your hippocampus or your ability to shift and focus attention if we ask you to move your body in an aerobic way for 2 to 3 times a week? And we collaborated with a spin class, so clearly very aerobic. And what we found was in those people that did successfully do 2 to 3 times a week a 45-minute aerobic activity, their mood got significantly better, their memory function got better, and their ability to shift and focus attention got significantly better. So that gives a little bit of a guideline for low-fit people. 2 to 3 times a week can start to give you some of those cognitive changes. But you don't look low fit. So let me answer the question you're about to ask me. Like, what about me? I exercise pretty regularly, and how much do I need? So to answer that question, we went to another spin studio and we said, look, we're going to give you free classes. You could exercise as much as you want in this at this studio, and go up to 7 times a week. And the control was just stay the same. They were working out twice a week at the studio.
Control was the other group that you were testing them against?
Yes,
okay.
Exactly. And so what we found was basically every drop of sweat counted. The more you exercise, the more change in your brain we noted, both your hippocampal function, prefrontal function, and mood.
I am obsessed with this woman. If you've heard the podcast in the past, me talking about Dr. Wendy Suzuki and her Happy Brain, Happy Life, this is where I learned a lot of what I know about what's informed strength and conditioning at Burn. So let me just explain to everybody why Burn Bootcamp has 3 strength days and 3 conditioning days. And this is really, really important, okay? Because strength is such a buzzword right now. You hear everybody talking about strength, and it's not that I don't believe that strength is very important. It's actually strength is so important, right? That it's been a part of our philosophy long before it was a buzzword back in 2012 in a parking lot when we had dumbbells and we were telling women that strong is the new skinny, that you need to lift weights if you're going to be strong into the future and you're going to live a long time to build memories with your family. You got to be strong. Because what strength does is build your body, it builds your posture, and it gives you a framework, and a physical framework in which you're going to be able to live for a very long time. Okay. Now, that's not everything, because we have this big ball of mass in our head called a brain, and strength training is for the muscles, but conditioning is for the mind. It's aerobic, anaerobic, right? The aerobic part of it, the conditioning part of it that we do 3 times a week at Burn, we're working on driving BDNF or growth, like growth factor, right? And so like what we're doing when we get our heart rate up to like you can use VO2 max as like a measurement for that. You're getting your heart rate up. The more you get your heart rate up, the more positive benefits that you have, not only on your ability, your like cognition, your discernment, your ability to navigate the world, your prefrontal cortex functionality, but your deeper functionality, your memory functionality. The hippocampus in the brain is responsible for this memory functionality. And when you're driving growth factor, you're giving you're supplying the hippocampus with growth factor. You're going to increase the, really, literally the size of that brain structure. And when you increase the size of that brain structure, you're increasing simultaneously and directly, in a directly correlated fashion, the ability for your body, or for your mind, to store and retain memory. Like, so this goes really deep. Sometimes, a fitness company or two could have just like a fitness protocol, and you show up and it's like, hey, we're going to do some workouts, and it's good and you feel it and it's great. But our programming goes really, really deep. Okay, there's a reason that strength and conditioning exists in the way it exists, because the long game is not about the bikini body that we can get this summer, although that's a byproduct. Great. What we're really worried about is the memories you can make in the long run with your family, because you live a long and happy and prosperous life, and the role model you get to be for those people in your life, because you show up and you take care of your body and your mind every single day with one simple tool called a camp. That's all you need, in my humble opinion. Morgan Klein. So
Agreed.
take us out with your thoughts.
Come check us out. That's my thoughts.
That's right.
Come check us out if you're not already. But guys, thank you so much for listening to the podcast today. If you're a new listener, make sure that you are subscribing so you never miss an episode. You can do that if you're listening to us, you can do that on that podcast platform or on YouTube. Come follow us there. We post all of our podcasts also in that video format. So thanks for having me, Devin. Thanks for joining us today. We're going to end like we always do. 2 claps on 2. 1, 2.
Bye, everybody.